All right. I know Nick Huba, the sports editor from the Press of Atlantic City, is a wrestling guy, so I'm sure he'll want to give me some thoughts on my picks for WrestleMania. I have full disclosure, Huba. I have not been keeping up with the storylines for about a year and a half. I am out.
What happened?
Not by choice. It's just I moved and life happens and,
Oh, stop. Excuses.
It's not, so I'm not like the guy who says, I grew up, I'm too good for that. I'm pissed at myself. I'm trying to find a way to get back in, but these no fans in the buildings is not helping.
See, I was just talking to Josh about it. Josh loves it, evidently. I'm not
brought him back.
I know. It's an amazing recovery story.
Yeah. Now, McMullen has bailed. Now, McMullen's a huge WWE guy.
McMullen's like a nutcase he's a nutcase with wrestling.
He bailed with the no fans. He said he just can't get into it.
Well, I think the WWE has kind of been taking AEW's lead a little bit on this, and they've changed things up in these closed arenas. AEW the first week had all the wrestlers on the outside betting and drinking vino and doing all these weird eating and doing things, and it just made a cool story. You could look outside the ring and they show them kind of betting and stuff. The next week they got kind of in trouble for it, so they decided to put them in a back trailer and then doing the same thing, and they had little picture-in-picture. And this week I think they had them properly socially distanced around the ring so they could talk, and it gave it kind of a good different feel to it. So I've liked the AEW stuff. WWE, this weekend's going to be weird. Let's be honest. We all look forward to this weekend. It's the Super Bowl of wrestling, and it's going to be really strange.
It will be. Now, the being on 2 days is not helping my cause to try to get the TV back for 2 nights, but I'm going to do my best because I know my girlfriend has been watching the Tiger King with her son, and I am out on that. So I could give them... Dude, I'm just not succumbing to society's pull right now. There's so many other great options to watch. Everybody else can tell me about the Tiger King. I am out.
I think you know me pretty well. I'm a huge sports guy. I watch anything from the Premier League to the championship to everything in soccer and all this junk. I got sucked in right away.
I know, but I was talking about earlier in the show about how the one thing I'm enjoying about having no sports is that I'm not tied to the television every night to have to watch the Sixers or the Flyers or the Phillies, and then I could be a normal person and just watch a sitcom or get into a show, which I never do. I never watched The Office. I never watched Breaking Bad. I never watched now I get to watch all this stuff that was never afforded to me.
See, I'm not a sitcom kind of guy. I'm always a sports guy. And for me, it's been kind of hard, and my wife always jokes with me about it. The weekends are always the toughest because I'm home, and I usually build my weekend around, this weekend, the Final Four. I'd be all right, we're doing stuff in the morning, at 6 o'clock we're going to do this, and I'm going to watch both games of the Final Four. But it's I sometimes look around the weekend, I'm like, oh, great, okay, there's nothing really going on. It's pouring rain out. The kids are on their devices, and it's oh wait, Kentucky, Kansas from.
I was going to say,
Arizona from '97?
Are you watching the old games?
I watched a couple, and the one Arizona, Kentucky. I forgot how good a game that was. That was a ridiculous basketball game, the final that year. I'm a huge North Carolina basketball fan. I think people know this. Love Dean Smith. Watched the Villanova game, and another amazing game. I've watched a bunch of them, but I just I haven't watched every one. No, because it's just I'm okay.
Well, you see, ESPN is going with Monday Night Football every Monday. They're going Tuesday Classic baseball games. Wednesday they have something different every night. The Red Zone channel. Did you see this? They're going to play Red Zone 17 straight days of every week. I got
that's
no.
That's where we are.
Yeah, I got no time for that.
Well, that's 20. It's what do you do with your time? I got into the Tiger Show, and then I watched Dark Side of the Ring, which I highly recommend.
I watched that this morning. Actually, I watched the new Jack episode, and I've already seen the Benoit episode.
The New Jack episode is an eye-opener to everyone, because I remember I went as a kid. I lived up in Toms River, and they used to do the Bar A show every year in the summer, ECW. I will always remember New Jack chasing the Public Enemies around with a bottle of Jack Daniels, threatening to hit him with it. That was one of the things. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, this makes total sense now.
Oh, man.
I guess it's not 2 hours on wrestling now.
Right. I did watch that this morning. I watched the Benoit, and I watched almost all of last season. Some of them I just didn't have interest. I just watched the Fabulous Moolah one. I guess Monday night I was watching that, but
I'm going to ask you one question before we move on. The Benoit thing. What was the biggest takeaway from it? Because I've got a different one on this.
The biggest takeaway. That's a great question. I mean,
That's what I do for a living.
Everybody knows that. What was that?
That's what I do for a living.
Oh, right. That's normally my job here to ask the questions. Man, I mean, everybody kind of figured, like, it was a weird story that, like, the whole story about, like, McMahon coming out and they do the apology and then the next night they basically scrubbed him from everything. But, like, that this is a good guy and that everybody liked this guy. Well, I guess the takeaway is that a lot of people feel that Guerrero's death essentially was the beginning of the end for him.
That's one of the ones I took away. My biggest takeaway is that, it's going to sound really ridiculous, woman should be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, well, that was brought up by Jericho at the end.
Yeah, and I think you think about we talk about Liz and like this, like Elizabeth and like these glowing things. But woman was a person, Nancy, who understood the business. She was with Kevin Sullivan all those years in Florida when they all moved to WCW and all this stuff, and she like understood it ridiculously.
Well, you know what's funny about this, Nick? Talk with Nick Huba from the Press of Atlantic City, their sports editor. So I got into this conversation. My girlfriend was like, I don't understand why people like wrestling. And it's not like she's ripping you. It's just like she doesn't understand it. And the reason I was explaining to her that people watch it, they know that it's fake. We're not tricked by the fact that the outcome is predetermined. But a lot of people really like the psychology and the pageantry. And I said the blurred lines is probably the number one reason that draws people in of, is this really real, like these two guys? And the woman, Kevin Sullivan and Benoit, is a perfect example of the lines being blurred to where – this woman is married to this guy, but the storyline has her with this guy, and then in real life she switches over to that guy.
In the Bash at the Beach story, when they had the fight all over the Ocean Center, and then they went back and had the domestic issues, like it's almost too real in a way, and I think that's the one thing you really took from it. Like I thought that was incredible, and
that was played out in the Edge Matt Hardy story as well. Those two guys, in real life.
Yeah, and it always centers on a valet, doesn't it, in some way?
See, we need sports taken from us more so we can have conversations like this in the 5 o'clock drive time.
Well, what do you want to talk about? Let me look at my sheet of games today. Oops, nothing. I'm moving on.
Nothing. Well, I do have some things on my list. There was a reason I reached out to you this morning to invite you on today's program. Let's see. All right, let's start with this. Yesterday I had Marty Small on. He did confirm, as he did on his Facebook Live, that they have talked to the NBA. Does that do anything for you? Does that do anything for the area?
I guess it does this. If we don't even get basketball, gets the name out there as a location that could potentially is big enough and high profile enough to host it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the other cities on there. I think Louisville was on there, Bahamas. Orlando, I think Vegas was on there too.
Yeah, now the reports out there that Vegas is the only place they're considering. But I only bring this up because the next question that it stemmed, which I discussed with him, was, look, okay, even if you don't get this, at least you have conversations. What about Summer League? What about, and then he said Summer League, and what about the NBA draft? So having these conversations, I don't think they're getting any games here for this whatever season's going to be having left. But I think the Summer League idea makes sense. And he brought up, like, spring training where you have Arizona and you have Florida. Well, maybe the East Coast teams can play Summer League in Atlantic City and the West Coast teams can play in Vegas.
I guess. Like, I'm not disagreeing with that would be an incredible thing, but I think it's more of that, like, smaller Summer League, like those 4 or 5 teams kind of. Like,
I got no problem Vegas, with that. Yeah.
Before they get to Vegas, they do, like, the Orlando and the Utah one. Yeah, and do a couple of the smaller, like 6 or 7 teams, and they all move out to Vegas. Now, if they could do that, you could take the Knicks, you could take the Nets, you could take the Bullets, you can take the Sixers,
Celtics.
Put them in Atlantic City for 10 days, let them play off. Oh, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's their best thing, because I don't think the draft thing's going to fly. Like, I just, I hate to be Debbie Downer, which I usually am with these things. Like, yes. I just don't see the draft in Atlantic City working. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any kind of, like, why would the NBA want to have it there?
You know what? I thought about this morning, and I'm thinking, like, do doing it in Boardwalk Hall where they did, Miss America. They could really make it look cool. I don't know. I think the only thing, I did some research on this. I have not seen the NBA draft held in a non-NBA city almost ever. So,
and we also would assume the first one to do that would be Vegas. Right, like that would be like they wouldn't go to Atlantic City without going to Vegas first.
Okay,
like, I think that's pretty well known.
But do you think the Summer League? I mean, you're a guy who you've covered the casino beat. You're on the sports beat now, so you know both kind of. Do you think the casinos would get behind it, and that this would be something because Vegas does it and it's packed out there, dude?
Yeah, but the only thing I'm going to say I think it could work. I'm not going to say I think it will work, though, for this reason. I think part of it is when are we Summer League is also like June, July. When is it? August, really? July, August? Like after free agency,
it's right. No, this year's Summer League is scheduled to begin July the 5th through July 15th, the Vegas Summer League.
Okay, so here's would be my biggest concern. The casinos are very big on room occupancy, and room occupancy in the summer is extremely high. Like there's not a lot of really like rooms out there to have at some points. So if you're Atlantic City, why would you want to have that there when you already have the people in the city? You're not bringing in an additional crowd. You're kind of like you're staying even in a way. Does that make any sense?
I get what you're
saying. That would be my concern.
Well, it's like why people complain about when they bring the beach concerts and put them on the weekend. It's like we don't need help having people here on the weekend. Right, okay, but the Summer League is
my only concern.
The Summer League is played all week long, and I mean you would have tourists coming in all week long watching their teams. I mean Vegas, that thing is packed out there, man. They sell that joint out.
They also have in a big arena that has the Thomas and Mack a lot of it, and then the other one I think is in the small arena on campus. Yeah, and I just think it could work. Honestly, like why not? Like
I think it would work with, like you said, the smaller. Like I don't think they need the 30 team. Like Vegas has every team out there. If they did the Utah one or the Orlando one and just had like 4 to 6 teams here for like 4 days in the middle of the week, I think that's your winner right there.
That could be it. And now the question is, will the casinos get behind it? Because that's a huge part of this. That's kind of the reason like the casinos kind of build a little on Miss America. You know what I mean? Like I think this is kind of that kind of situation. Will they open the rooms up? Will they help you through this process? Because it isn't just you can't do anything in Atlantic City regarding these kind of big events without the casinos kind of being involved in it.
Okay,
so
well,
I wonder what
let's not try to outthink this. Vegas does it, and they think it's a good idea.
That's Vegas.
Okay, well, I'd like to
like,
follow.
Honestly, like I would love to follow that model too, but also like I think one of the things that's interesting is name me a sporting event that's kind of succeeded here.
That I agree with. That
even an event.
I've been one of the biggest critics of this area supporting stuff. So I agree with you there. But I think you don't need the local people to support this. The outside people will support it. You'll have enough outside people.
So you think it's the A10 kind of theory or the MAC kind of theory? Enough people will come in to make the event successful, and you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I think if you have if you have Boston, Philadelphia, New York, yada yada, 4 days with their draft picks here, I think you'll get enough interest from basketball fans and the teams.
Probably, I'm not. Yeah.
Now let me ask your opinion of this.
But we got to get there. Like we got to get things over the line, and I always think that's kind of the issue with these things.
Let me ask your opinion of this then. Do you view when the Sixers played the Nets at Boardwalk Hall a success or failure?
I don't even remember it. Okay, so there's your answer.
It was 2012. It was the year they got Bynum, right? And Bynum never played.
Okay, yeah.
They played a game, a preseason game at Boardwalk Hall. I want to estimate they had about 6,000 people announced. I would not say there was 6,000 people there.
Now you're putting me on the spot with a trick question. I would say it's a success because you got them in the door, and the success is getting the event, not the attendance. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but they never. Okay, my answer to this would be they never came back.
Well, why did they never come back? Was it the attendance, or was it the other? Like we don't always know what the real reason is behind a lot of
No, that's fair, but. My guess would be, okay, when the Soul played here, why didn't they come back?
They probably didn't get the support they thought they'd get here.
Right, and I would imagine the Sixers and Nets probably, or the Sixers used the building and figured not enough people for us to not play a game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I could be wrong.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'm not totally disagreeing on that. Like, it's a hard sports city to sell to, and you know, a couple of years ago, I went to they had that 4-game, 3-game festival they had, that basketball thing with like Washington and NC State and Princeton and all those teams at Penn State. Mm-hmm. Like I think it was like not this year but last year, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. Yep. Like we watched 2 of the games and there were probably 6,000 people there. But to me, it was a success in the teams they drew, in the way they ran the event and things like that. But some people looked and went, "Oh, this is not a success because of the attendance." So, and I looked at the MAC tournament the same way. Like the MAC put in all kinds of the MAC tried to make that work, and it laid a lot of groundwork. And I think it will be a success, but it was cut short this year because of the other things. So because of the coronavirus. So, you know, judging success in this market is very difficult, I think.
All right. Well, one thing that has had success in this market, which is the LPGA. Now, they announced today, I was a little surprised, I got to be honest, that they did not cancel the event, but they have moved the event. It's one of the few things that have just decided, all right, we are going to try and just move it. Now, they've gone all the way back to the last week of July, the first week of August. So is that something that we think will work?
It only works if we have the tournament. Like, if we have the tournament, I think it'll be a success. I think people will be out there like they usually are, enjoing it. But let's be honest. Like,
that's a hot week, man.
Don't bother me.
That's hot, baby.
Burnt out golf course would be fantastic. Drives running all over the place. I'm all ready for that. But I also, you know, they also did the whole kind of statement was, we're going to decide by June 1st. And let's be honest, do we think they're going to have a golf tournament at the LPGA on those dates? Like, we don't know what the Worlds are going to look like in 3 days.
It was originally scheduled for May 25th to the 31st. It will now be held July 31st to August 2nd.
Do you think they'll have the event?
No, I do not.
I don't either.
No,
I'm being honest.
I'm being honest. I was when I saw this morning, I was pleasantly surprised that they didn't just axe it all together. So I'll give them credit for that. July 30th, shocked, but I am extremely hopeful that we are back to real life by July 31st. I don't see it happening.
Well, the one thing you have to keep in mind about the LPGA tour, it's not just an American tour; it's more an international tour. And if the world is not like back to normal outside of the United States, there's no way to have this thing. You know, you're gonna have a field that's really watered down and not the best field. And do you really want to have that?
Well, guess what? The most of the places are behind us at this point right now, and we're behind other places. But there are places that are behind us. So yeah, that's another problem with. I hope we're both wrong. They just moved the Preakness back, by the way. New date uncertain. But we'll see. So that's the same thing with the LPGA. I'll go to this one then. Are you – I guess if you don't think the LPGA is going to happen, you certainly wouldn't think that the NJSIAA is going to play spring sports then.
If you had to ask me right now, I would say it's probably a 10% chance. I don't know how you get there. You know what I mean? Now, I would be I think you have to keep saying basically it's one of these things where, you know, they're not going to kill the season until they have to.
Okay.
And they have the May meeting out there. The May meeting, they can make a firm decision and be like, hey, we haven't seen anything that leads us to believe we'll be back open by the end of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what my thought process was when Mike McGarry was telling me about what they kind of decided. You know, to kill it early it would devastate a lot of kids. But to kind of keep them believing that there might be a season and hold that hope there could be, I probably think that's the right thing to do right now.
Yeah, and look, I was one that said, why cancel the basketball tournament, just put it on pause for 2 weeks? Well, guess what? The 2 weeks came and went, and they would have had nothing. But at least it was. Yeah. But that was 4 weeks ago. That was such a different time of where we are right now. Now, Mike wrote today, or maybe is it today or yesterday, about letting teams play into July. I mean, now you're basically, you know, saying in July. I can't even imagine that the seasons would be able to start by July. That's the problem.
Well, that's the whole thing. We just don't know. You know what I mean? We could maybe what we're doing is helping and working. And we turn around on May 5th and go, oh wow, this thing is really slowing down, and we go for a couple more weeks, and we look at June and we're like, yeah, we can get some kids out there to play some games and stuff. And I would be the happiest man in the world. Like, I would love it.
Yeah.
Like, even if they have to play like six games, like, just let them go play and let them have senior day and let them have these things to enjoy and remember.
Well, we're in a similar boat. I mean, I'm on the board for Atlantic Shore. We're supposed to host the states and the regionals this year in Ventnor, and the tournament trail starts sometime in mid-July. I mean,
what have they told you? Like, what is anyone? Because my son plays 10-year-olds now, and I think the last time I was on your show, you were not here, and I was telling the other guys about how my wife texted me then and said everything was canceled, basically postponed, and their opening day is April 14th, I think, next weekend, not next weekend, the weekend after, and we still haven't heard anything, and I wonder, like, if my son's going to play this year on 10-year-old team.
Well, I mean, our regular season is essentially, it's supposed to start this week. That's not happening, obviously.
No.
The tournament trail, from what I've been told from Babe Ruth, is still on at this point, but obviously very fluid. I mean, that's not supposed to start until mid-July.
We're talking about youth baseball now. So that's where we are in the pecking order.
No, but I think it's fair that a lot of people listening are probably answering these same questions. Like, is my son going to be able to play a baseball this year? Like, I would love to be able to take my team over and hit, but they're not allowed to go use the cage. Like, the rec departments are shut down. The beaches are shut down. You can't do anything. So
how do you pick any of these teams? Like, honestly, like, our league does, like, we play the rec league, and then they pick the all-star team. How do you even pick a team? Like, there's no team. Like, what do you just take?
Right. Well, that's another thing is, if we don't have a regular season, you're essentially just having straight tryouts, and anybody who wants to try out, I guess, would be welcome. Come on out. You're. I don't know. It's very crazy, but we're all in wait and see mode, as we just kind of chronicled, right?
I think none of us have answers.
Nope.
As much as we like to think we do, and we wake up every day and kind of look for a glimmer of hope in anything.
Well, let me ask you this then: do you feel better about things returning than maybe you did 2 weeks ago, or do you feel worse?
No, I feel worse.
Yeah, like the NBA suggesting they might try to play. I don't see, like, Cuban said mid-May, then he kind of backtracked on that. I don't see an NBA game being played with or without people until around August.
Wow, that's aggressive. I'm kind of taking the look at, like, what's going on in England too, and they're basically going to end up having probably shelve the Premier League this year and basically void the whole thing, because they're going to be playing in, like, September. It's going to be a mess, and I just wonder if the smart thing is now for just to kind of just end everything and just kind of let it, like, go, and then we start up next year in August. I'm wondering if the first thing we see is football, but I wonder if we even see that.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing is there's, you can't have training camp in July. You're not going to have training camp opening in July to get ready for preseason games in August. So when does your training camp start? In August to get ready for games in September? That to me is another very dicey situation that we're staring down right here. I hope I'm way off on these timelines. I don't think so, though.
I don't think you're off at all. I kind of think what's going to happen is you're going to slowly see things open up, and don't forget, what's the one thing they want us to do is stay away from each other. Mm-hmm. So maybe the idea is kind of like what AEW and WWE did. Maybe they go and they figure out a way to keep these people, keep the athletes kind of quarantined, and then they play, and then they kind of just keep them in a secluded area in a way, like we're only access, and they test them all the time. Maybe that's what they do. I have no idea. I just. Like, as a sports guy, and that's what I really am in my heart, like, I did news for all those years, but it's hard. Like, my wife always asks me, are you okay on the weekend? I'm like, I don't have anything. I can't go play golf. I can't, like, do this. I'm really kind of like,
yeah.
What do I do now? Oh, look at this show on Netflix. Oh, it's about food. All right, I'll sit and watch 7 episodes.
Are you an Ozarks guy? Did you watch Ozark?
No, I'm really not a real TV guy. That kind of TV. It just never was my deal.
Me neither, but there's certain ones. Like, I watched The Wire, Breaking Bad. I did watch, like, those. Ozarks is very good. If you want to kill some time, it's 3 seasons. You'll have a good time.
I'm going. I think the next thing I envision actually is there's a show on Netflix called Sunderland Till I Die. It's about like the Sunderland Football Club and its dramatic fall over the last couple of years. I think that's what I'm going to do, and then I might go watch like old ECW pay-per-views for some weird reason. I don't know. That's where I'm going to end up going.
Nick Huba, the sports editor for the Press of Atlantic City, as we dove into a couple local conversations, the LPGA, the NBA possibly coming to Atlantic City, the NJSIA spring seasons, and we dabbled into some wrestling. All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Take care. Nick Huba, everybody, here on the Sports Bash. Good conversation, fun stuff.